All right, so let's get started. Thank you all for coming out on a sunny, but rather chilly Friday afternoon. We recognize that Friday afternoons are the hardest pull to make, but it's our choice because, as you know, we run our classes Monday through Friday until about 2:30, and so this is ideal timing in order to feature the Citizen State Bank First Friday Lecture Series. I am Laura Milner, the very proud Dean of the College of Business Administration, and I have a couple of shout-outs. I would like the Board of Advisors, the representatives we have here today, to stand up, please. Stand up. The reason we're going to give these guys a big round of applause is for the first time in UWL history, we have a board that is not only giving their time, their talent, but they're also investing in us with their treasure. It's 100% participating on all three dimensions. That's never happened before at UWL. So big round of applause. I would also like to, if the students from the Beta Alpha side could raise their hands. I assume no one in here? They're all out there? That's it. Okay. I saw a few hands. Anyway, they're our student host today, and so they also deserve a big round of applause. They're taking care of getting us all in, but they're also going to be handling the reception. Okay. All right. Just so you know, Beta Alpha Psi, it's an honor society, but only AACSB accredited business schools can have them. So it's a rare breed that they are. All right, so I'm going to introduce the patron of this, of the Citizen State Bank First Friday Lecture Series. It's Dennis Vogel. And Dennis Vogel is the CEO of Citizen State Bank. And he's a community bank based in La Crosse and has been recognized as one of the top 100 community banks in the country, in addition to being one of the happiest places to work in the world. They actually track that, by the way, so every week all the employees across Citizen State Bank get a little prompt. It's not exactly like, are you happy today? But they're actually watching the mood of the different branches and the different people. So if something starts going a little south, then Dennis can quickly swoop in and see what any issues are and work to correct it and then get everybody back. So one of the things, he is an alum, and he did work at another community bank where he worked himself up the corporate ladder in a very short time to become Vice President of Credit Administration. He began his banking career as an intern while studying at UWL, where he got his Bachelor of Science degree in finance in 1997, and then followed it up with the MBA in 2002. In addition to his role at Citizen State Bank, Dennis is very active in other for-profit business ventures in the area, including many nonprofit charitable organizations. So many, in fact, we're just not even going to bother to name them. As a result of these efforts to constantly give back in the community, he has received several awards and honors over the years. He has recognized the importance of getting involved as an alum of UWL, and we really appreciate that. And and when he was here, he was very active in both the AMA chapter and the Financial Management Association chapter. He has worked with the Silver Eagles Board of Directors, which is actually the CBA branded alumni group, and he takes great pride in our university. Whenever possible, he has started a scholarship for us as well with CBA majors who are interested in banking. So there's not only a job opportunity here, there's also an opportunity to earn scholarship money. And he wanted me to stress, he always wants me to stress, banking isn't bad and boring, especially the way Dennis does it, because if you've ever been to Citizen State Bank, it definitely has a chill vibe to it. It is literally a cool place to be, and clearly the happiest place on earth. So anyway, with no more further ado, here's Dennis Vogel to introduce our speaker.
Thanks for the great commercial. Appreciate that. But I just want to, this is our second full year of the First Friday Lecture Series, and I just want to thank the Dean, the CBA, and UBL for allowing Citizen State Bank to partner with this great event and bringing some of our very successful alums back to campus, because prior to this, we weren't highlighting enough of that, and today is just another day of bringing Amy to campus. So it's great that we can highlight these individuals, but also give an insight to different careers, and something that hopefully you can learn and take back as to careers you might be looking into. So by a show of hands, who has never had an internship here or is looking for an internship? Hold your hands up. There's quite a few. All right, so if you are looking for one, I want you to see me afterward in the networking session afterwards. Hopefully you can stay, because we recently posted a internship position at Career Services, which is, what's the website called? Handshake. So you can see it on there, but also if you want to hear more information, actually what this internship is all about, it's a credit analyst, and that's actually how I started my banking career. I think it's turned out pretty well for me. So if you're looking to build your resume, find out what banking is all about, and again, many of you might think, oh, I don't want to work in a bank, it's boring, it's dull, but people that have been in our organization, and I know there's, where's Mike? He used to work for us, he's over there. It's not dull, right? Banking is not dull at Citizens, right? All right, so, but seriously, hopefully you can join us at the networking session afterwards. It's all about networking after you get your degree and what you know, so push yourself out of your comfort zone and hopefully attend that and come up to me and ask me some questions about that. So with that, I want to turn it over to Amy. You didn't come here to hear me speak, but I want to welcome Amy. She's a 1990 grad in accounting and has been at the same business, Great Lakes Higher Education, and is currently a vice president, has been there for 24 years, which I think that's tremendous. That's the first thing when I was reading up on that. You don't see that very often anymore, especially with the younger generation. They want it now, and there's a lot of job jumping, and it's refreshing to see this, that hard work does pay off, and what success you can have in just climbing the corporate ladder at one organization. So with that, let's give Amy a round of applause and welcome her.
Thank you. All right, am I on? I sound on. So first of all, I want to say thank you to Dr. Milner and CBA for inviting me here today. I'll say it feels a little bit odd to be called a distinguished alumna. It makes me feel old. And of course, thanks to Dennis and Citizens State Bank for hosting this. The title of my talk today is I Didn't Account for This. Get it? Account, I'm accounting. This is as pithy as it's going to be, so I just wanted to highlight that my one attempt at pithiness. I had the opportunity to visit campus today and walk around and see some of the buildings where I attended classes and see buildings and places that were wide open green spaces at the time that I attended school here. And as I walked around and visited the places where I spent 4 years of my life, I reflected really on one primary question, and that question is, how did this girl from the tiny township of Windsor, Wisconsin, which is just north of Madison, come to lead one of the nation's largest philanthropies focused on higher education? It's a surprise to me even today. My role at Great Lakes is I am the Vice President of Community Investments, and as Dennis said, I've been there 24 years. And what I want to share with you today is the winding path that I took to get to the position I have today and some of the lessons that I learned from some of the bigger mistakes that I made along the way. So in my role at Great Lakes, I have the privilege and the honor of overseeing, directing, and developing our philanthropic strategy. During 2017, last year, we gave away, my team and I gave away $73 million in new grants. All of our grants are focused on one audience. Our purpose is to help more students from low-income households, students of color, and first-generation students achieve their goals of education beyond high school. Our strategy is not to give scholarships, so we're not a scholarship provider. Instead, what we do is we focus on helping colleges and institutions change their policies and practices so that they can help lots and lots and lots of students. Our point of view is that scholarships are great in helping individual students get through college by paying for college, but what we really want to do is move the needle nationwide on college completion. Our partners in this work are, of course, colleges and universities. They are also some of the nation's leading researchers in testing student success strategies to learn what works, for whom, and in what context. We also work very closely and collaborate with other philanthropies, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. We partner with them regularly. The Crosse Foundation out of Detroit, Michigan, and the Lumina Foundation out of Indianapolis are some of our partners. And we also work very closely with the U.S. Department of Education. I can tell you that when I was in your seat gosh, many, many years ago, I never imagined that one day I would be crafting multi-million-dollar grants that have the impact or the potential to impact the lives of thousands, if not tens of thousands of students. And it all started here with the education that I received at the University of Wisconsin-La Crosse. So I want to share with you my dorm room. I spent 2 years in Sanford Hall. Has anybody here lived in Sanford Hall? So I lived in, my room was on the second floor, the room right above the vestibule. And my roommate Amber and I decorated our room. Does anybody, Elle magazine used to be really, really, really big and paper pictures. We decorated our room, and every time somebody opened the vestibule, all our pictures blew off, and we thought, enough. So we super glued our beautiful mirage or mural here to our cinder block walls, and it stayed put. And it stayed put so well that when we moved out at the end of our sophomore year, we had the opportunity to pay a special assessment to UW-La Crosse, because apparently removing super glue from walls is very, very difficult. So I thought, so why did I come to UWL? I came to UWL for 2 reasons. One, I wanted to study physical therapy, and 2, UW-Madison, the only college, other college in Wisconsin at the time that offered that major, was too close to home. That's why I chose UWL. It's funny, as I think about it, I had never been to a physical therapist as a patient. I didn't know anybody in my family or acquaintance circle who was a physical therapy major, so I mean a physical therapist, so I don't know why I chose it, but nonetheless I did, and landed here on campus as a physical therapy major. That didn't last long. My first year, I came home for a break, and my older sister was attending Madison Area Technical College, and she said, "Hey, Amy, will you come to class with me tonight?" She was taking a night class. I said, "Sure." So I went with her, and her professor that night was screening this short film about how crude medical instruments were on the battlefield during the Civil War period. Watching this movie, all of a sudden I feel a little lightheaded, exit, pass out on the floor. 2 outcomes from that single event. 1, I embarrassed the snot out of my older sister. She never asked me to go to class with her again. And 2, I decided that maybe a career in the medical field is not for me. So next semester, I decide business. Business is for me. I'm going to go to business. And I enrolled in my first set of business classes, including accounting. And this changed my life. Does anybody know what this is? The world's largest six-pack? What? Oh my gosh. So this is the world's largest six-pack. It doesn't look like this anymore. I think it's City Brewing Company. Oh, La Crosse Brewing Company? Okay. La Crosse Lager. Okay. Is it painted like this anymore? Oh gosh, this is like literally in your town. So I took accounting, and the reason that this changed my life is when I was taking my first accounting class, something big here happened in the city of La Crosse, and that is that the Bond Corporation out of Australia purchased the G. Heilman Brewery. So why was that interesting? Well, it was interesting because, number one, there were many millionaires made overnight here in the city of La Crosse. But this was in the news every day for a year, this purchase, and it brought to life accounting concepts. And I'm so glad that there are accountants in this room, because you'll, I think, get what I'm talking about. They talked about intangible assets. They talked about goodwill. They talked about amortization, and ultimately, and not so fun, was they talked about junk bonds when this deal ultimately didn't go so well. But it turned out for me to really connect me to what I was studying rather than just concepts. I got to see it play out every day in the newspaper, hear about it every day in the news, and I think I just had some really great professors that helped bring it to life for me. So this, again, changed my life. So after I took my first 2 accounting classes, I declared accounting as my major. I was actually an accounting tutor and got paid to be a tutor for a couple of years. I think I was a tutor for like 4 hours a week or something. It wasn't like that much of a job. And I had great professors. So Dr. Crosse was the department chair at the time. Remember Dr. Winter, Dr. Gardner was our tax professor. And I think they really, really prepared me for a great accounting career. And I got to know them, and they got to know me. And I think that that really paid off for me, because when I went to start interviewing prior to graduation, I interviewed in Milwaukee and I interviewed in Minneapolis in the Twin Cities, but I really wanted to work in Madison. And the only Big Six firm, I know it's not Big Six anymore, I'm going to date myself through this entire talk, but the only big firm at the time that was in Madison was Ernst & Young, and Ernst & Young didn't come and interview here at UWL. But a professor, Dr. Evans, had a contact. He had a friend who is the managing partner at the Madison office, and he was an accountancy professor, but I never had him. I was never his student. He basically didn't know me from Adam, but the relationships that I had built with my professors made him comfortable enough to call his friend and say, hey, Bill, Dr. Evans, I don't know his first name, I've got this young student that I think you should interview because I think she'd be a great fit for your firm. And he was willing to bet his reputation on the student that he had never had in his class. So I got the interview and I got the job. And when I started the last semester of my senior year here at UWL, I had an accepted job from Ernst & Young. Then I graduated. I still wonder, my husband asked me how I got my graduation cap to stay firmly on the very back of my head. I don't know, but it was the 90s. That's how we did things then. So I graduated in May of 1990. And over the summer, I studied for and took the CPA exam. And, I got ahead of myself. So what did I learn here when I was at UWL? So what I learned was, 1, do not use super glue on cinder block walls because it's very hard to remove. Number 2, be curious, be flexible. I didn't let the fact that I fell down and passed out as a physical therapy major derail my education career and make me question, what do I need, why am I here, what am I doing, this is terrible. I just sort of rolled with it and found something new to do, followed my interests by really connecting with what was going on in the world around me with what I was studying. And then network. I know that everybody you talk to will tell you about the importance of networking. I hope that you see me as a living, breathing example of the power of networking, that this man who had never had me as a student was willing to pick up the phone and vouch for me. All right, now I'm at Ernst & Young. So accounting majors, who's an accounting major? Okay, so for those of you who are not, bear with me for just 1 minute. I bet that every single one of you will remember where you are the date that your CPA exam results come out. I remember where I was. I was at the Janesville Gazette on an audit. And this was, again, old school where there was actual telephone, not a smartphone. You get a call, and the first-year auditor always has to answer the phone. So I answer the phone, and I hear, hey, the CPA exam results are out. Did you pass? And I started with a cohort of, I think there were 16 students that I started with, or people that I started with at Ernst & Young. And my response was, of course, I don't know, I'm in Janesville. I'm an hour away from home. So hoping that nobody here works for the U.S. Postal Service, phoned a friend and said, hey, can you drive to my house? Can you open my mailbox? Can you rummage around in there and find a envelope that looks official? Pull it out and read it to me. And longest, like 45 minutes of my life while all of this was transpiring. And calls me back, tells me my results. And I passed, yay. Notice, I don't know if this is still how the results come to you, but notice that it does not say anywhere on here that you passed or you failed. Isn't that terrible? Terrible marketing, right? It should say, congratulations, you have passed the CPA exam. How awesome. Don't bother looking at my scores. All right, I'm going to come back. But I passed, and that was a big deal. So enjoy the moment when you find out. Maybe I wouldn't be sharing this, obviously, if I didn't pass the first time. And I understand that we just learned about the great pass rate again for UWL accountancy students, so congratulations to that. So what about a public accounting? So public accounting is a fantastic training ground. I mean, I can't say enough about how it prepared me for the job that I have today. I audited the gamut. So I had financial services firms, I had manufacturing companies. I can tell you the difference between a plastics extruder and a plastics thermoformer. I had the opportunity to work on initial public offering for a bank, and I audited a gravel pit. So whenever we're playing like a parlor game and 2 truths and a lie or something like that, I can pretty much end it by saying I audited a gravel pit. I think today they use drones, but back in the day they didn't. And as a first-year auditor, you always have to do the inventories. And I actually had this little manual, it's about this big, and it taught you how to estimate the volume of aggregate. This is not rock, this is aggregate. I also learned the difference between concrete and cement when I was on this audit. But you had this little book, and depending on the shape of the aggregate, was it conical or was it kidney shaped? You pasted off and you calculated the volume, and then based on the volume you determined the value of that pile of aggregate. Who says accounting is boring, right? Who else gets to do that? It's pretty awesome. So I did that for, did a bunch of, that gravel pit was one of my first clients, I think my third client maybe. So what I want to do now is prepare you accounting students who are going to go into public accounting for the world of review comments. Has anybody heard about review comments? No? Okay, well let me prepare you. So as a first year auditor, you start by auditing the easiest things. And the easiest thing is cash. So you audit cash, that's your first job. And cash consists basically of getting the bank statement or multiple bank statements of the account and tying them to the general ledger. Not all that complicated, but it's the first thing you do. And you get last year's work papers, this year's bank statement, this year's general ledger. You prepare your documents, and then you hand it to your in-charge or your senior. I did that. And I had, again, this is binders, pre-computer. So I get all of this written up, and I literally was like, what? Like it was some artwork, right? Really proud of myself. And what I got back from my senior was on a legal pad, this is a legal pad, a list of review comments that started at 1 and I think went down to 47. So at 47 review comments on this very easy cash thing, and it was crushing. I mean, I was just crushed by all of the comments that I got on my cash section. So I clear all of my comments, and then what happens is your manager on your audit reviews your work, and instead of writing me 47 comments, he probably wrote me 15. And I clear those 15. And then the partner comes, and the partner reviews my cash section and probably gives me 5 comments. So you are constantly clearing comments. When you think you're done in public accounting, you are not done. No, no. Somebody else will come and review your work. So it's humbling, but what it taught me is the value of having other people share their points of view, share their perspectives, share their feedback, and how it ultimately makes your work better. So it's a practice that I still use today, and everything that I write, everything that I produce, I ask multiple people on my staff to review and provide feedback on. And it's taken me a number of years to recognize that position power is a real thing. And most of the time, I would get back from my staff, looks good, Amy. Awesome, wouldn't change a thing. And my experience in public accounting taught me that that's a bunch of crap. My work can always, always be better, and I've got really smart, talented people working for me, and I want their comments. I want them to tell me, you use too many prepositional phrases, clean it up, make it more concise, or this is too long, or whatever. And that is something that has always hung with me. So again, accounting students, it's going to be hard the first time that it happens to you, but embrace it and really recognize how that can improve your work. So summarizing my Ernst & Young days, be humble. Remind yourself 5, 6, 7 times a day that you are not the smartest person in the room, that somebody else is going to know more than you do, have feedback that you can learn from, seek feedback, and most importantly, use the feedback that you receive. So the next time I audited cash, I learned from the 47 review comments plus the 15 plus the 7. And the next time I audited cash, instead of getting 47, maybe I only got 31 because I learned from the first time around. So it's one thing to seek feedback, but it's another thing to really internalize that feedback, use it to improve. So let me tell you about leaving Ernst & Young. One of my first clients was this company called Great Lakes Higher Education Corporation in Madison. And I hated it. Great Lakes was my least favorite client. And it was my least favorite client because it was unlike any other client. Ernst & Young had it slotted in the financial services division. But if you looked at their balance sheet, loans, and it's a loan servicing company, it was a loan servicing company, but loans wasn't an asset. So this company didn't own loans, they didn't buy loans, they didn't sell loans. They serviced them. And so they had all of these rules and regulations put out by the U.S. Department of Education under the Higher Education Act that they had to comply with. And so it was this big compliance job. And if you're familiar with federal regulations, they often don't make sense. They're not intuitive. Like you can't wrap your head around them and say, oh yes, I can understand why they have to do these things because it makes sense. It made no sense to me. It challenged me. But every year I went back for 4 years, the company had grown, and they had grown in a way that meant that now they had to have this audit or that audit. And every year I was spending more and more time there instead of just 4 weeks a year. Now it was 8 weeks a year. Maybe it was a little bit longer. Still challenged me, but you know. So imagine my surprise when the president of Great Lakes called me and said, hey, Amy, would you like to come to Great Lakes and create our internal audit department? And I thought, well, So I thought, one, tell me more about creating, because if nothing exists there, if I take this position, I can't possibly do it wrong. I mean, that was literally, as this 24-year-old, that was my approach. I can't get it wrong because nobody's done it before. Nobody can say, that's not how you're supposed to do internal audit. So that appealed to me. But I asked the president some questions, and how I had sort of the chutzpah to ask these questions when I was 24, I don't know, but I did. Question one I asked him was, tell me why you're creating an internal audit department. Is this a directive that you, the president, are getting from your board of directors, and it's something you don't really want, and you're not really in support of? So if this is just you appeasing your board of directors, then I don't think that this is the job for me. And he said, no, that's not it. I said, okay. I think it was very idealistic. The CPA exam wasn't, too much in my past. I said, okay, so will this newly created internal audit department have free reign to audit anything that the internal auditor determines she wants to audit? Or are you going to restrict that internal audit from auditing certain parts of the company? Again, if the answer would have been not what I was looking for, I wouldn't have taken the job. But no, he assured me, this is a truly independent function. You can audit wherever you think the greatest risk is. I thought, great. So question 3 was, when said internal auditor produces findings, will you, as president, make sure that your management team follows up on those findings and implements the recommendations. Because if I do all this work and you're not really supportive of them and nothing comes of it, that would be very satisfying and unsatisfying, and I don't want to do that. And he said, nope, 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 nope. So all three of my questions checkmarked, and I said yes, and left Ernst & Young after 4 years and started with Great Lakes on November 4th of 1994. 24 years. I like to say that I will one day find a job that I like and stick with it. So first of all, the first thing I did a couple of months in was I made my first hire. And this was probably the biggest professional mistake of my career that I had made at that point. And what was my mistake? I hired me. This was me. I hired a person who was exactly like me. She had an accounting degree. She had worked for a public accounting firm. She had worked for a public accounting firm for 4 years, just like I had worked at a public accounting firm for 4 years. She audited the same kind of clients that I audited for 4 years. Essentially, she could have had my job. I didn't know not to hire somebody who was exactly like me, a mirror image of me, in terms of experience, in terms of the way she approaches things, in terms of how she thinks. And she left shortly before her first anniversary. And she left to take a job as a controller, which was a fantastic position for her. So it was a good experience for her. I think for that short period of time, I really liked her. But I've never made that hiring mistake again. And that's something that I want to impart to you as you're thinking about your first position. Think about your hiring manager and don't get too or solely hung up on how well do I like this person? Can I hang out with this person after work? How's our interpersonal fit? I think that's important, yes, but I also think it's really important that you think about how the skills that you're bringing can complement your hiring manager and how the skills that the hiring manager has can complement areas in your professional experience or in your competencies that aren't as strong. It's got to be a two-way street, not a one-way street. So I've never done this again. I also want to talk a little bit about Great Lakes' philanthropy and the growth in that philanthropy. When I started, I only wanted to be, I never thought I'd be in internal audit, but there I was. And I sort of nagged my boss relentlessly for 7 years to let me out of internal audit. I wanted to do it for 3 years. After the 3rd year, I said, I really want to move into operations. Internal audit was just like public accounting, a great proving ground. I got to see everything in my company, from treasury to HR, to claims, to you name it, I had a chance to audit it. But I craved accountability. I craved ownership. I wanted to own something and then think, okay, whoever is the internal auditor, bring it on. I dare you to find something wrong with my operational area. My boss said, be patient, be patient, be patient. And finally, 7 years in, my patience paid off, and I had the opportunity to move into an operational area. And I loved it. I did that for a number of years. And then in 2006, my Great Lakes is a 501c3 corporation. Our charitable purpose, our mission, is to help more students get to and through college. So in 2006, he came to me and he said, you know, or he didn't come to me, but he came to our executive team and said, I would like for us to start executing on that charitable mission. I'd like for us to start making some grants that can help more students get to and through college. We didn't have a philanthropy area. And again, with my, it's never been done before, I can't possibly do it wrong mentality, I raised my hand and said, I'd like to give that a go. Let me try philanthropy. So again, think about that. You can't be wrong if nobody's done it before. Raise your hand and raise your hand high. So I raised my hand and said, I would like to give that a try. And I did. and had a team, built up a team, and then changed some direction, changed teams, built up the team again. But in the end, I'm going to come back to the slide. In 2006, we made $367,000 in grants. In 2011, we made $2.6 million in grants. And in 2011, I thought, wow, this is a huge amount of growth, a huge amount of change. I'm not sure that we're doing it right. I'd like to have a reset of our strategy and then see where we go from there. And then where we went from there was last year, we went to $73 million in new grants. So let me go back a slide here and share a little bit about our funding. So at Great Lakes, we fund really in 3 areas. So we make what we call exploration grants, validation grants, and scaling grants. And they are probably exactly what they sound like. Exploration grants, we're looking for the next big thing, the newest idea that can help students of color, students from low-income households, and first-generation students complete college at higher rates. The world of philanthropy, especially my friends at the Gates Foundation, are right now almost exclusively focused on scaling. So how do you take great ideas and bring them to bear? But we recognize that everything that's being scaled today was at one point a bright idea, right? A promising practice, something that was happening in a boutique way on some college campus somewhere. So we continue to carve out space to find and nurture and give cover to people who are generating those next big ideas. Validation grants. This is an area where I get to use my statistics class that I took here at UWL. So we work with external researchers. MDRC is a large social policy 501c3 based in New York City. We work a lot with them. And what they do is they take exploration ideas, not necessarily ours, but sometimes ours, and that's where we really put some teeth behind, is this promising practice indeed promising? So there we're looking for evidence. And we fund a lot of randomized control trials. Have you talked about randomized control trials at all in your classes? It's a statistics thing. So this is really where we take a promising idea and we have a treatment group and a control group, and the experiment is run, and people that are in the control group don't get the service. People that are in the treatment group do get the service. And then at the end, they compare statistically to see which group had better outcomes. So I've learned about counterfactuals. It's been fantastic. So I never thought I would use statistics. Honestly, if anybody in here can nod along and say, yeah, I never thought I'd use that, someday you might. You might be surprised. So validation grants, a lot of money, a lot of time. These are often 5-year grants, sometimes 7-year grants, but worth it. And then finally, scaling. Most of our efforts are in scaling. So again, our goal is not to have boutique programs that can serve 50 students, 100 students, maybe 200 students at max. But instead, what we really want to look for are those programs that can serve thousands of students across the country. Give you an example. Placement tests are a really good example. So when you started here, you relied on your ACT score, right, to figure out, are you eligible to attend UW La Crosse, yes or no? The reality is at many community colleges, rather than relying on an ACT, which isn't a requirement to get into community colleges, there's instead what they call a placement test. And these placement tests, students come in, this is literally how it works. A student comes in not knowing they have to take their placement test. They walk up to student affairs and to get a parking pass, and student affairs says, oh, Brian, it looks like you didn't take your placement test right now. You need to go to room 214 and take your placement test. And Brian is like, geez, I'm going to be late for work. I'm hungry. I didn't get a chance for lunch today. Doesn't matter. Brian, go to that room and take your placement test right now. So off Brian goes. Brian takes his placement test, not prepared, hungry, worried about being late for work, and maybe doesn't do so well on his placement test. And his placement test says, Brian, you're not ready for college level math. Yep, you graduated from high school, you have a diploma, we accepted you here at this university, but you're not ready for college level math, so we're going to send you to developmental education or remedial math, which is essentially high school math that you have the pleasure of paying for when you're in college. Well, what we know is that students who start at a community college and are placed in developmental math graduate 6 years later from a 2-year school, so graduate 6 years later from a 2-year school at a rate of 10%. Terrible, terrible, awful, national tragedy. So what can be done about that? And this is, again, where grant making comes in. So through a grant, we're looking at how to avoid that. And we're looking at saying, okay, instead of using this multiple measure or this placement test, are there other indicators of success in college level math than this one test score that's derived on one day by a student who is unprepared, hungry, and thinking about being late for work, and good grief, was there only to get their parking pass. So through this test or this validation, again, a treatment group and a control group, the idea is, what if we also gave a different test to students and looked at their grit or their persistence or their mental thoughts about, do I think I can be good in math? How hard do I work when I hit a roadblock? Do I keep going or do I quit? So what if you took into account their grit, their high school GPA, and their test score? What if you added all three of those things together and used that to determine whether a student should go into developmental math or college level math? And what we found through this test is that students were much, much, much better off being placed in college level math and bypassing this thing that resulted in a 10% pass rate after 6 years. So why does that matter? Why does philanthropy do that? Well, philanthropy does that because colleges don't have the time or the money, mostly the money, to do that sort of experimenting on their own. That's where we bring in researchers, we bring in college students, we bring in math faculty, we bring in testing faculty, and come up with an answer about here's how we can help not only this class of students, but apply that across the country, and again, help thousands of students avoid developmental education. So that's one example of the grant making that we do. You already saw this slide. So my role today at Great Lakes, I have a team of 22 people. I have 2 divisions. I have a team of program managers who manage and administer all of the grants that we make, the $73 million. By the way, that $73 million in grants will cover the next 5 years, I think. And our budget for 2018 is $100 million. So after this, I need to get back to work and do some more grant making. But I also have a communications team. So we spend a lot of time talking about our grant making, not from the space of aren't we great for this grant making, but instead here's what we've learned, helping schools understand these are the results of the interventions that have been tested, here's how you make them happen, here's what to do, here's what not to do, and then kind of innovate and iterate and innovate and iterate. So I know I'm getting close to my time here. So what do I want to impart from my 24 years of experience at Great Lakes? My 3 things are, don't fear the unknown. Again, I've had really the privilege of starting 2 departments at Great Lakes from scratch, and I couldn't have been wrong. So there are a lot of things I did wrong, but nobody could say you're doing it wrong because it was brand new, so take those opportunities. Be indispensable. Be the one who raises their hand and say, I don't know how to do that, but nobody's done it. Let me figure it out. That's what a leader is looking for in all of you, is to be indispensable. And then my favorite 4 words as a leader is, how can I help? We're all busy. As new projects come in, the last thing that a leader wants to hear is, oh my God, I already have too much to do. I can't possibly take that on. A leader wants to hear somebody on her team say, how can I help? How can I help me? how can I help another teammate, but just frankly, how can I help? So practice saying that, how can I help? Might be helpful to you here while you're still in college, but I guarantee that that is something that will be helpful to you after you graduate and get into your first job. So my last and final slide is I had the opportunity to come back to UWL, gosh, I don't even know, 2.5 years ago, and had my picture taken with President Obama. So I got to meet President Obama. Was anybody here that day when he was on campus and heard his speech? You shook his hand, yeah. He was fired up that day. He had just had some big political wins, so he was on fire for that speech. So very grateful that my company and the work of our philanthropy presented the opportunity to meet President Obama, and have it be here at UWL made it all the sweeter. So in closing, I again want to thank Dr. Milner, CBA, and Citizen State Bank. I also want to thank my husband for coming up here and bringing my dad, who made my college experience possible. We lost my mom in October of this year, or last year, and I know she would have been tickled to have been here as well. So thank you both for coming. And thank you for coming out on a Friday afternoon. If you have any questions, I do hope that we can chat during the reception. Thank you.
Wow, what a timely person. When I said, well, we go about 4:20 and stuff, she's like, boom, 4:20, I'm done. Okay, so a couple of things. I'm glad you articulated about the world's largest six-pack picture, because I'm thinking there's been so many students here who also experienced the world's largest six-pack, but in a different kind of way than well, maybe it would be eye-opening for everyone, but as you can imagine, students experience beer in different ways. So I want to thank you very much and give you a token of our appreciation for what you've done for us and coming here today. Big deal. Anyway, a couple of things. What Amy didn't tell you is Amy is actually a bicyclist, a long-distance bicyclist who bikes. She's a Centennial biker. And so when I said, oh, you mean 100K? She said, no, Laura, I mean 100 miles. I'm like, oh, well done. So Amy is known for going the distance, and one thing I just found out today, that not only she do the distance on the bicycle, Amy has donated to us before, but she just set up a new scholarship for us. So we really appreciate you doing that. Really appreciate you going the distance and really supporting us. It's a big deal. All right. Couple other things. I need to know who is here. So accounting majors, raise your hand. Who are you? Okay, let me see. Economics, anybody from economics? There we go. How about finance? Well, information systems, marketing, management, international business. Well done. Thank you all so much. So I hope you will come with us to continue the conversation with Amy as well as Dennis at the reception. I understand several of you owe Professor Ansius some paperwork. I think you'll find her at the reception so you can continue that completion rate. And thank you so much for coming today. Really appreciate it. See you over there.
I hope I had enough lessons learned mixed in there.